everyone, this is Ashley with CTandRina Digitals. I'm going to do a tutorial to show you how to use the Tropical Leaf Overlays from my Etsy shop. I have a few images open that I'm going to do because I'm going to show a few different ways to use them. So included in the overlays I have individual leaves. You can use them individually or you can use them to overlay yourself, how you want them to overlay on your image. Or I have some sets put together that already have some depth of field in them with some leaves that are further back and some that are closer up. And then I also have some in there that are all in focus and you can kind of play with them the way you want to. I made them this way on purpose just to make it versatile, so you can just grab an overlay and use it quick, or you can kind of create your own look with them. So first I'm going to do this one, and this one I kind of want to cover over her face just a little bit. I'm going to use this one, I believe. I might switch, but you just open it, both the images you want to use, select all, edit copy, edit and paste. These are super simple to use because they are PNG files. So I don't necessarily want this one over here, so I would just create a layer mask and use a black brush at 100% opacity and just brush that one off. I kind of don't want this one down here either. I just wanted like a little bit more, and you can resize them however you want. I wanted a little bit more this way a little. Okay, so now the leaves are a little bit brighter than I want them to be, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm actually going to do a hue saturation layer, and I'm going to click this box right here, and that creates a clipping mask, so I'm only working on my overlay and not on my subject. I'm going to bring down the lightness on that, and I'm going to bring down the saturation just a little bit. I kind of want the green to match a little bit better with my backdrop. I don't use this lightness too often. I only use it sometimes because I usually would rather I'll show you in a second. I actually won't use that here, but I will use that sometimes just to bring down the brightness on that a little bit, but you do lose contrast, so I'll do it a different way. If you do want to change the color of the green a little bit, maybe it's a little bit too yellow and you want to add some more cyan in there, you can just drag your hue slider too, and that'll kind of change the green if you want more yellow in it or more cyan in it. I'm going to leave it the way it was because it matched pretty good with my backdrop. And then I'm going to go and click on my overlay again. I'm going to create a curves layer, and this is how I typically bring down the darkness on my leaves. I mean, your highlights sometimes stay the same. You can just play around with how you want that to look. Curves is a good option for that. And I would add a little bit of blur to that because obviously if these are closer to the camera and she's behind them and we want her to be the focus, you would need to blur the overlay. Not too, well, it just really depends on your style, but I think that looks good. And sometimes I also create like a little layer above it, clip to it, because I don't really want it to be on the backdrop. And I'll grab a brush at just like 10% opacity, grab a green in there somewhere, and kind of just brush over that to blend it. You could create a layer above the whole thing and kind of brush it onto the whole image to blend it a little bit. That just adds a little bit more depth to it. So that's pretty. I would leave that the way it is. I didn't really want, you could add in other leaves, like say, this is a good example. I wanted to grab this one, select all, edit copy. Say I didn't really like the leaves that were in here already on this overlay. I could just add in a different one down here. I'm going to go ahead and go up to filter, and I'm going to use the exact same. I'm going to go here instead of going down here again, because this is the last filter you use. So it's the same blur that I added to these leaves, and I want it to be the same. So I'm just going to click that. And then you could copy this curves layer, but this is a different overlay, so it's not going to give you the same effect. So I'm just going to do another curves layer, clip it to that overlay, and drag that down until it matches. And then I can create another layer if I want. Right click, create clipping mask, and just brush on a little bit green to that too. Okay, so that one's done. Before and after. Okay, so this one's a fun one. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one, and I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do this. You can create shadows with them as well. So select all, edit and copy, and paste. And I kind of want this to be more of like an editorial look here. This would be a fun one to kind of overlay. On the face. You could leave it green, go up and add filter, blur, Gaussian blur to add the blur in there, and obviously make it as big as you want. I could leave it like this. You can lower the opacity on it too if you don't want it to be as noticeable, but you can also I could have done it on there too, but I like to do it this way instead. If you right click on the box right there on the overlay, select pixels, go up to edit and fill, and select black. Press OK, and then deselect, and then go ahead and select all, or you could have just left it on there, I guess. Copy and paste. And I actually, you can leave this. I'm going to add my blur real quick. And then I definitely want to lower the opacity on this one. I like to do this. I'm going to create a black and white layer real quick, just using my adjustments. I would use this. I think it looks better on black and white. But you can leave it on color if you choose to do so. You can either leave the overlay on her face, which gives it a different look, or you can go ahead and go down to your subject layer, select subject, or you can do the selection yourself. I always use select subject. Duplicate that layer, create a layer mask, and then Control or Command I on your keyboard to invert that layer. And then your overlay up here, you right click and create clipping mask. Oops, sorry, I have to put it below the black and white layer there. And it will put it behind her. And then you can make it, again, as big as you want, just for the shadow effect rather than just using the overlay as is. You can use it as shadows too. Okay, so I'm done with this one. So before on that one, after. Okay, and now this one, this is another one. You can use shadow or either way, really. I'm going to try this one. I just opened some random ones. Before I paste that, I'm going to go ahead and select her. And duplicate that layer, create a layer mask, Control or Command I on your keyboard to invert that layer. I'm going to paste my overlay. And now you can even do something like this, and you can create a layer mask on that and use a brush at a low opacity and kind of brush that off of her face. If I did that, I would probably, I might not use this one because I don't like how these ones are in focus. And again, you could just add blur to those ones, or you could just use, you could open your own. I have these leaves separately as overlays as well. You could just add in your own. You could put them, I'm going to delete that layer mask, behind her. So that those ones would appear to be behind her and these ones would be in front, but you could still blur them a little bit more so they're not as in focus. You could, I'm going to unclip it from her real quick. I'm going to go to select pixels. I'm going to fill with black. I don't know how these ones are going to look. Okay, so I want to show you this. So if you do it on the image, you're still going to see that green. So if you're wanting to do that, it's best to do it before you do the overlay, or before you add the overlay. So select pixels, edit, fill, black, and if you still see the green, just do it again. Okay, select all, edit and copy. And paste. If you still see the green, sometimes when there's already blur added, it'll do that. Just go ahead and just add a black and white layer over that and it'll get rid of it. Of course, just merge those two together so it's only on your overlay. Lower the opacity on that. And you can put it behind her. I don't really like how that one looks, if I'm being honest. That way, I like how it looked with the green, but not the black and white. I would probably use, I opened this one. I'm going to make this one black and fill that. Copy and paste. I'm going to flip it, right click on it if you want to flip it. Add some blur. And this one I would lay behind her. That's pretty. Select all and copy again, paste. I'm just showing different ways to use these. I think the ones where you hide the face just a little bit are pretty, but definitely whatever works for your style. That's pretty. And then you could add in, since I have all the individual leaves in there as well, this is exactly why I did that. You can add in as many as you want. You can change the depth of field as many times as you want. And the way to do that is just like say, okay, I'll put this one behind her. And then if I paste again, I could do a smaller leaf up front and add not as much blur or more blur to it. And you're just doing that, you're just creating depth within the image. If you want to change the shape of it, just click this. If you have your box there, click up right here on this warp tool and you can kind of change the shape to whatever you want, which I already did for some of the leaves in there, so it was again easier to use for people. But really it's like endless how many different things you can do, and it adds such a different look to your images. If you have any questions, you can message me on Etsy. If you are a studio photographer, I would love for you to join my group on Facebook. I will link that in the description.